pieces of 7 proof.
Welcome to Wellness Warriors, a podcast addressing the root causes of illness and their natural solutions. And now your hosts of Wellness Warriors, Dr. Justin Lane and Michele Schroeder.
Well, hello, Dr. Justin Lane and Michele Schroeder. How are you guys doing today?
Doing fantastic, Michael. Thank you.
It's great to be here with my two favorite wellness warriors. I've learned so much with you guys, and you may have just saved my life more than once. So I'm grateful to be here today. You know, I want to start with, I think, Michele. Michele, we want to talk a little bit about the blood sugar trap. What is that? And how do I know if I'm in it?
Okay, so a lot of people in the world, not just in the United States of America, but in the whole world, have a condition called insulin resistance. And it's a precursor to very many chronic illnesses. The blood sugar trap is one where your blood sugar is uneven. So sometimes you have high blood sugar and sometimes you have low blood sugar, and it's just kind of going all over the place. Some ways that you will know if you have blood sugar issues is different energy levels throughout the day, maybe really tired after a meal or maybe really weak and tired before a meal. Those are a couple of ways that you'll know that your blood sugar is not managed well. But also there are some outside things that you can take a look at. One of them is maybe some of you feel like you have a little extra belly fat. That often comes from a condition of insulin resistance. You might feel like you're a hormonal hot mess. A lot of times that's at the bottom. There is documentation that high blood pressure, insulin resistance lies at the bottom of that. It also has a lot to do with heart disease. There is a lot of people, I'll hear people say, I don't really have a blood sugar problem yet because I'm only borderline diabetic. But if you're trending in that direction and your A1C or your glucose levels are high on a test, you have insulin resistance. Or Justin can speak a little bit more to that
Is borderline diabetic kind of like being a little bit pregnant?
That is
Yeah.
Yep,
Kind
exactly.
of
I have a little bit of a blood sugar problem, not
Yeah.
a full-blown one yet,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, and then blood sugar dysregulation affects autoimmune disease too, and particularly Hashimoto's, because it really affects the thyroid and other hormones. If you're experiencing a lot of brain fog, you can look to your blood sugar and manage that. So it's kind of like it's the number one thing that you can regulate and get functioning well to keep really good health.
So Justin, what's happening to my body when my blood sugar is unstable?
Your body is freaking out, to put it simply.
Okay, I got it.
Your brain in particular. So the brain is very sensitive to fluctuations in blood sugar. It likes stable and steady. It doesn't like up and down roller coaster. So when our blood sugar is not where it needs to be, our diet is really what we're talking about, what we're eating, how much, when. Those things all impact our biochemistry, our brain chemistry in particular. So a lot of, when we talk about in the context of autoimmunity, when your blood sugar is dysregulated, it suppresses your immune system. It weakens your body. They have a study. In fact, I think it's on YouTube. There's a video, used to be a video, where they show what happens after somebody drinks a soft drink, what happens to their immune system for the next 60 to 90 minutes after they drink the soft drink is pretty outrageous in terms of it's not good and what it's doing. So it's suppressing your immune system. It's going kind of negative, actually, for a few hours after you have a beverage like that. So that's just one example. So it's suppressing your immune system, but it's also driving inflammation. And a lot of folks who are autoimmune have inflammation and they have pain, which is a direct connection. So people feel that, right? Some people feel they eat sugar and they feel it in their joints right away. That's inflammation you're feeling, and it's driving the inflammation. So it's just weakening the body more, and it's making things like weight gain more frequent. When we look for symptoms, there can be a variety of symptoms. I would say the key ones Michele mentioned, which are energy changes around meal times. Some people wait too long to eat. They get lightheaded, dizzy, nauseous, a headache, blurry vision, forgetful. Their memory sucks. All those from not eating, right? And then they eat, and the lights just came back on. and other people eat and need a nap and are overweight and, have frequent urination and all the high blood sugar. So a lot of folks have a mixture of both. Some are clearly on one end or other. It's like a spectrum, like we talk about autism or gluten. Same thing. Diabetes is on one end, hypoglycemia on the other, which is very rare, by the way, medical hypoglycemia. And then you have a lot of people doing this all day, and it really comes back to what we've been taught and conditioned with our diet. And so food is medicine in our world. It's also poison. So stop the poisoning. That's the first thing.
So what's the connection between blood sugar and the thyroid?
Well, in the case of autoimmune thyroid, it's going to weaken your immune system. So it can perpetuate the attack on the actual gland. Because the immune system's weaker, it's going to attack the gland more forcefully. But it also can affect, it's just how you're feeling physically. Like I said, joint pain, muscle pain, stiffness, achiness, arthritis. We hear this term all the time. What is arthritis? It's inflammation of the joint. What's causing inflammation of the joint? Well, our diet's a big one. Certainly our activity is another in that case, a lot of wear and tear on the joints. But for most Americans, it's their diet. Our diets are killing us, slowly or quickly.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something else that affects your blood sugar regulation is how much stress you're under as well. Yeah. So if you're constant, like I'll have people say, well, I hardly ever eat sugar. But they may eat other types of carbs that are going to turn into sugar in their body, such as white rice or potatoes or things like that. But then that same individual who really feels like they have their diet dialed in has unrelented stress going on, and they don't do anything to manage it. And what's happening is the minute your body triggers a stress response, the cortisol, which is another hormone in your body, rises, and that triggers, when adrenaline there, cortisol is there, then it triggers up, increasing your blood sugar level, because typically, like, if you need to finish the stress response, you need to run it off, you need to use the blood sugar to actually be done with the stress response. But in our modern life, we're maybe sitting there stressing out over bills, or we're sitting there stressing out over the condition of the world, and we're not actually doing anything to use up that blood sugar that's being spiked, and so we end up with high blood sugar.
So is there a correlation with all that and Hashimoto's?
Well, absolutely. It's just, in terms of a trigger, yes. Yeah, it's a big deal. But stress and your blood sugar track with each other often. So we often work with folks who tend to be low blood sugar. They tend to have low cortisol, just like folks with high cortisol tend to have high blood sugar. So they tend to track, or they correlate with each other a lot of the time. So when we use the example about sleeping, right, a lot of people have trouble sleeping at night because of high blood sugar. So that apple at 10:30 we discussed a while back.
I should not have done that.
That'll spike everything right when your body's trying to prepare to go to sleep. And then some people wake up a lot during the night, and they wake up not because they have to urinate. That's not the urge or the reason they wake up. They just wake up because they're wide awake. It's 3 a.m, could be 3 p.m. That's what Michele mentioned. That's the adrenaline response, the norepinephrine. Oh. Your body is going into fight or flight. So a normal night of blood sugar would be this. You eat dinner, right? As blood sugar drops through the night, you go to bed. Mm-hmm. If you tend to be on the low blood sugar side, those folks look usually more thin and lanky. Their body types, thin and lanky. They need more glucose more often to keep their muscles strong and keep their brain awake. Those folks, if they don't have enough glucose through the night, what the brain does, it starts to get nervous. It starts to freak out. It says, hey, I need some glucose to keep you asleep. So I'm going to ask for some cortisol, because I can turn cortisol into glucose and make the brain happy and keep me asleep. Well, if someone doesn't have enough cortisol, the backup plan to the backup plan is to wake your butt up at 3 a.m, wide awake, because you don't have enough fuel.
And go, I need to eat an apple.
Right, exactly. Well, and then
I was going to say, even adding some fat to whatever you're eating. You want high fat and protein at night.
Yeah.
That's what will help stabilize. So there's people that like to eat a half of an avocado before they go to bed, or maybe some nuts or seeds or something like that, because they get more stable blood sugar through the night when they do that.
Yeah, right. Like a 30-minute before bed. We've thought about inventing a dispensable almond butter machine where you can just roll over, and then it just, right into your mouth.
It's funny you should mention that, because after I ate my apple at 10:30 at night, the next day I got online and asked, why should I not have eaten the apple at 10:30? And what the information I got, it said, so basically eating an apple is almost the same as drinking an energy drink. So I was wired till 1 a.m. But the other thing I found that kind of helps me sleep is, you mentioned like the almond butter. So if I eat something like almonds or cashews that maybe have some selenium in it, it kind of helps me even me out, and I go to sleep and I don't wake up in the middle of the night.
And it's probably the protein and the fat that are doing that for you.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's a real deal.
It's a real deal.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm doing something right and didn't even know it.
Yeah, so we tell all of our low blood sugar folks, hey, have a bedtime snack 30 minutes before bed, have a healthy fat, a healthy protein, and see how your sleep changes. It's longer, deeper, better quality usually.
Yep.
So
And if I'm sorry, I'll just
No,
say
no,
one
no,
more
you
thing.
go
Like
ahead.
if you, let's just say that you're drinking, soda or having a dessert before bed, and now your blood sugar's high. What's going to happen is it's going to trigger your insulin to be produced. And if you're one of those people that is on a roller coaster of blood sugar, you're also doing damage, because your insulin is now going to be high, and that's going to drop your blood sugar too low. And your brain is still going to say, scream for some more glucose and wake you up. So high sugar at night, not a good idea. And there are so many tasks that insulin do in your body. You have insulin receptors on many of your cells from head to foot. Like, and insulin needs to be there.
Yeah.
But if you start overproducing it over and over and over again daily, you're just sugar, insulin, then your cell receptors start to shut down. They will not respond to the communication. And then your pancreas thinks it needs to produce even more insulin, and now you're eating more sugar, so you don't have low blood sugar. And it's just this constant battle that you're fighting. So the way out of that trap is to eat really balanced meals and make sure that you're not getting really high blood sugar or really low.
So basically, the food that we eat, in order to balance all this stuff out, we're programming our bodies as if it was a computer, and if we program it with a bunch of sugar, malware data, it's going to freak out and go crazy. And if we program it with some healthy foods, nuts and legumes before we go to bed, then I'm programming my body to like, okay, now it's time to go to sleep. So that's kind of a cool way to think about it. I have a question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned white rice.
Mm-hmm.
So I found that I can't eat white rice anymore. So when we go out to like a Chinese or a Japanese restaurant or any place that has rice, I say, don't put any rice on my plate. I can't eat it. What's going on? I know it's probably just me, but what's in the rice that may trigger something within me or somebody else that's having a similar problem? Is it sugar?
It could be a variety of things. It could be that it turns to sugar really fast. That you process it really fast. It could be a food sensitivity. I mean, it just depends on the individual. But rice is one of those things that you metabolize very quickly, and it goes to blood sugar very quickly.
Well, no more rice for me. So, Justin, what are some things that the labs may show, and where are some areas that they fall short?
Yeah, I think where they fall short in primary care is they don't look at the complete pattern usually of your blood sugar. They look at a one or two markers, and if those are within a lab range, they'll just say everything's fine. So incomplete analysis, that's probably my biggest pet peeve. But what we're looking at when we're evaluating blood sugar, we always want to know your symptoms around meal times. A lot of people have high blood sugar symptoms. Some people have low blood sugar. Some it's very obvious, one or the other, but often it's a mixed pattern, we call it. A lot of people have symptoms of both. But when we look at that in blood work, we're looking at things like glucose and an A1C. We look at a marker called LDH, which is an enzyme inside the cell that makes energy for the body. And we look at like a lipid panel. We look at your triglycerides, want to see what those are doing. But, those can all look fairly optimal, even on a blood test, and you can still have blood sugar problems. I found that actually earlier today with a client. We were talking, and I said, look, on paper, you look okay, but you have significant symptoms around meals, and here they are. And so turned out she eats once a day, one meal a day. So she's creating a starvation pattern. Her body is freaking out. Her pancreas is freaking out with that one meal. It's exploding a bunch of insulin, and it's surging, and she can't get it into her body. So we're going to work on some neuro coaching with her.
That common problem with chronic illness, particularly. You hear all these diets about, let's go keto, let's go carnivore, let's really go low carb, or let's do intermittent fasting or prolonged fasting. And when you're dealing with someone who has chronic conditions, that doesn't always work. It can do exactly what he was just pointing to and cause more problems. So it's really important that you actually work with somebody who can help you know how to implement some of these strategies in your diet in relationship to your blood sugar, so you do the right one at the right time for the right person.
So what are some simple strategies that we can all do to help us escape the blood sugar trap? Michele?
Well, I would say balance. Start with a cornerstone of your meal being protein. So you want to have protein. You want to have vegetables because they have a lot of fiber in them. And fiber and protein will slow down the absorption of the carbohydrates that you eat. And you want healthy fat because it will slow down the absorption of the carbs that you eat as well. So it's kind of like if you were, for example, let's just kind of make the analysis between caffeine. If you eat caffeine on an empty stomach, it surges really high and later on you drop. If you have caffeine with food, it slows things down. Alcohol is the same way. Blood sugar, carbohydrates that are especially refined ones, if you eat those with some fiber, some healthy fat, and some protein, it slows the absorption down and balances out your meal. So that would be my number one, is just every meal, protein, fat, fiber.
I think Michele hit on a point with food pairing, very important, because in America we grow up often on meat and potatoes,
right?
And that combination is actually really bad for a lot of us to break down and absorb. So it's food pairing too. I think combinations of foods, basically what Michele is alluding to.
Wait a minute, no more meat and potatoes?
Well, even I read this.
Over.
I read this study. To his point, I read this study that showed that they were having people eat, because people come to you and say, I can't eat meat, I don't like meat or whatever, and I can't tell you how many vegans and vegetarians have dysregulated blood sugar, and we see it all the time. But now I forgot what I was going to say. But when I'll come back to it in a
Food
minute.
pair.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you'll get
Food pairing is important.
food
I know what it
pairings.
was. So
Meat, potatoes.
vegetables with meat has been shown when they do blood markers afterward, not to have an inflammation response. But where you eat just vegetables, you don't have an inflammation response. Where you might have one if you eat just meat, and they've done studies where they've taken blood right after certain way that they pair meals. So for anti-inflammatory reasons, you can pair your protein with your vegetables as well, and it really keeps the inflammation.
I have a
lower
healthy
in your
fat
body.
question.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm eating my steak.
Mm-hmm.
It's got some fat around the edge. It's cooked nicely. It's a little crispy. Can I eat that? Is that healthy fat with my steak?
Depends on how the steak was raised.
Happily.
Right.
It got to eat anything it
Yeah.
wanted.
So there's a couple answers to that question. The first is if grass-fed, grass-finished beef is the most nutritious and the healthiest. Usually tastes better too. So if you're eating grass-fed, grass-finished beef, you're getting the ALAs, the alpha-linoleic acid, the omega-3s that the cows are eating through the grass. So those are beneficial. The fat would be healthier probably in those cases. If it's conventionally raised meat, shot up with hormones and antibiotics and who knows what else, I probably wouldn't recommend it. However, fat can be really great for your nerves. We have a lot of folks that have neuropathy or who have problems with nerve function for whatever reason, and nerves love fat. They bathe in it. They love to be surrounded by it. That's kind of their nourishment. So again, it depends what the goal is or the outcome we're looking for your health, and that can kind of dictate. We kind of work backwards from that.
And it can depend a little bit on how it's cooked.
Yeah.
You know, your grilled meats tend to be a little more carcinogenic than, say, if you stew a meat or you cook it in a slow cooker or something like that.
Which leads into the oils we use, the fats we use. So probably the first thing we could recommend for everybody is get rid of your corn oil, your vegetable oils, your seed oils. Those are omega-6 inflammatory. They carcinogenic. They're bad news. That alone will help you out. If you can switch your oils you're cooking with, that'll make a huge difference.
Yeah, my wife is to the point now when we go to a restaurant, if we're going to order something that would be normally cooked in oil, she asked them, what kind of oil do you use? And if they say,
like your wife.
canola oil.
Southern Californian, I love.
She'll leave.
Yeah.
Or she'll just say, we will not be having French fries this evening, So I think it's important that we ask, what is our food being cooked in, as long as we're going out, and make sure that we're getting something healthy. I see a lot of stuff going on with beef tallow.
Mm-hmm.
That seems to be a big thing now. Would that constitute like a healthy fat?
It's a healthier one. Yeah.
Grass-fed, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the movement's been.
Think about it this way. If you're using unhealthy fats, or they've been changed because of the heat that they're exposed to or whatever, your cells get a little bit gunked up. I like to call it a gunked up cell. It's just inflammation on the cell.
Oh, okay.
And remember, I talked a little bit about insulin and how there's a lot of cell receptors that the insulin signals something to happen in the cell that's correct and good for your body. But if it's all covered with gunk up, then it's kind of like you have a little keyhole, and it's so rusty and so gunked up that when the little insulin key goes to turn it, it can't get all the way in and turn it and have the correct response in your cell. So when you're eating really inflammatory foods, including unhealthy fats, then what you're doing is you're just gunking up your cells, and you're going to make insulin resistance even worse.
Yep. That is good to know.
Yeah, I call inflammation the great disruptor. It disrupts cellular transportation and cellular communication. So it's exactly to your point.
So I have a question about naked carbs. What are naked carbs? I thought it was a rock band, but obviously it's not that. What are naked carbs?
I would just say anything that's just a carbohydrate all by itself, where you don't use the protein or the fiber with it.
Like juice?
Fruit
juice is a
Fruit
good
juice
example.
Would be an example. Yeah.
And it will
sugar.
spike your blood sugar really quickly when you have that, and then you're going to get your ups and your downs and your insulin and all that kind of stuff.
So I should not have a glass of apple juice and a granola bar at the same time.
Probably not a good idea.
No.
Yeah, you'll have a lot too high of carbs doing that.
So before we go, do you have any parting words of wisdom about how we can manage our sugar levels?
I think it was what Michelle started with. Eat real food. That's the starting point. Food is medicine. It's often overlooked. It's completely overlooked in primary care. Doctors don't get any training in it, really, and so it's not important in their world. But it's the most important thing because it's the thing we have the most control over usually. We have to eat. And so we're making those decisions every day.
Okay.
So choose wisely.
We'll do that. And I want to remind everybody that on our next episode, we're going to be talking a little bit more about how stress triggers autoimmune flare-ups.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you guys are going to fill us in with all the good stuff. In the meantime, I'd like to thank Justin and Michelle, our favorite wellness warriors. We'll see you guys again next time. Thanks for
Excellent.
joining
Yes.
us.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for being great to be here.
Okay.
Edit that out.
This has been Wellness Warriors, giving people the knowledge to have a healthy and vibrant life. For more information, elementalnaturalmedicine.com and KMichelleSchroeder.com. We invite you to join us next time for another edition of Wellness Warriors.